We are the system. We're the ones that do the actual hard work to make everything run. But this whole system doesn't work for us at all. It only works for the ultra wealthy and the 1%. But they need us to make their riches. But they screw us over every chance they get. And I'm sick of it. I think we're all sick of it. I know we all feel this way because we're working harder than ever and we're still falling farther behind. That's not that we're doing anything wrong. As you can see, the basics are not covered anymore by working 40 hours a week. So that's what we're talking about. Why does working 40 hours a week not cover the basics? Because that's not normal. It didn't used to be like that. Our parents or the previous generation, they were able to work hard and at least get food and housing. That's all that I'm really talking about. If somebody's working 40 hours a week, they should be able to afford food and housing. But as you can see, the average cost of living is higher or about the same than the average salary. And that puts us behind every single month. And the farther behind we get, the more desperate we are to find that job, the more desperate we are to accept that crappy job. And that's why they keep us stuck, because they know that if we are 1 week away from being homeless or from not having food, or the other way, they know that if we had 6 months savings in our bank account, then we could say no to that shitty job. They know that if we had 6 months of savings in our bank account, that we would have the ability to go find better work somewhere else. So the whole reason that they keep us stuck and barely scraping by is so that they can have control over all of us, so that we have to accept those jobs. Because all we're talking about is 40 hours a week should cover the cost of living, right? Food, housing, healthcare, childcare, like just the normal things. It should cover what it costs to live. But in America today, that's not the case. The reason why? Well, there's 3 reasons why. Well, there's one. It's the ultra wealthy. The ultra wealthy are the reason why. They've taken more than their fair share. And they've been able to do that using 3 separate avenues: the economy, the media, and the political process. And so we're going to be talking about the economy. Why does working 40 hours a week not cover the basics? That's crazy. 40 hours a week, and you can't afford food and housing. I mean, look at the number right there. For the majority of people, unless you are in suburbia, in urban areas, you're $800 short a month. In rural areas, you're $500 short a month. All we did was look up the average cost of living and the average salary. And the average cost of living was above the average salary in the majority of cases. Thank you, Terrence. The reason we ask for the me's in the chat, y'all, is because look at this stat. The average salary is lower than the average cost of living. But we all think it's our fault, don't we? We all think it's us. Pink, you think it's just you. Terrence, you think it's just you. Laura, you think it's just you. I think it's just me. We all just think it's ourselves. That's how the system really gets us, right? Because imagine if all of us were talking about this every single day. And what's so funny is every time I bring this up, all I do is point out the fact that America is not doing as great as it used to do, right? I see the stock market going up and up and up. I see CEO salaries going up and up and up. But America in general, the actual people that make up the workforce are the people that do the work. They are the ones who are falling farther behind. And then what I think is that the ultra wealthy want us pointing fingers, right? They want us saying, it's the blue people over there. It's the red people over there. It's those people that look different than me. It's those people that think different than me. Because the ultra wealthy know that if we continue to fight over the diagnosis, if we continue to fight over what the disease is, we'll never come up with the cure. So they want us fighting. Oh, it's team blue. Oh, it's team red. Oh, it's that group of people over there. It's that. I'm sick of blaming people. This has been happening for 40 or 50 years. Team blue had their chance to do better. Team red had their chance to do better. Neither did. Let's stop the infighting, because it's obviously has not worked over the last 40 or 50 years. So it's not about staying within your mean. It's about the fact that the same people that are choosing what to pay the salaries as are the same people that sell the products and the goods and the services. So what happened is that the ultra wealthy took over the economy. That's why working 40 hours a week doesn't cover the basics anymore. They figured out that in order to maximize their shareholder return, in order to always hit their monthly profits, they needed to squeeze us as much as they could to make sure that we never had enough prosperity. Because if you have 6 months savings, then are you going to accept that crappy job at minimum wage? Because if you've got 6 months savings, you're going to have the ability to go find new skills and get a new and better job. But if you don't have any savings, then you're never going to have that ability to take chances, to take risks. So that's why they make sure that all of us, that the average salary is right along the same of our average cost of living. And that's what's so funny to me is some people will literally be like, people need to live within their means. Somebody just said it. That's why I literally have the average salary and the average cost of living. But some people still don't understand that if you're working 40 hours a week, that it's not about that. Brian, that is eventually what it's about, but where are you going to get your health care from? Where are you going to get your banking services from? Are you just never going to use the internet again? Because what's happening there is you're telling us to, stop buying from the rich, but the rich control the essentials. That's really what it comes down to. The rich control our food. There are people that make food, that are food producers around us and near us, and they are the ones that create the food in our area. But because corporations have put themselves in between us and the food producers, we now have to rely on corporations for our food. Most people aren't confused. They're freaking tired. They know all this. And the people that still are pushing back against this, we don't care. Because you're obviously just believe the propaganda that came from the billionaires. So we're not arguing politics. We are not pointing fingers at red or blue. We are just talking about why is this the first generation in our country's history to be worse off than their parents, right? So here's the question. Why doesn't full-time work equal stability? That's it. Why doesn't full-time work make it easy for stability? Not being rich, not being fancy, literally enough for food and housing. That shouldn't be controversial, but it is, because the billionaires have made the fact that if somebody works 40 hours a week and still can't afford to live, it's not the billionaire's fault, it's your fault. And that's why we drop those me's. I appreciate you. Because they make us feel so isolated. They make us feel so alone. that we literally think we're the one that's the problem. But Jackie, you haven't realized that other people are like this. Look at Gen Z. If anybody knows anybody in Gen Z, they are working 40 hours a week looking for a job, trying very hard to make enough for food and housing. But there is simply not any jobs out there where they are able to make enough to cover the cost of living. At most, if you are lucky, in suburbia, you can make $400 a month. But in most situations, in urban and rural situations, you are $500, $600, $700. Literally Google average salary for urban, and it's the Economic Policy Institute. So here's what it is. For everybody that's pushing back against this, what I want to say is that I don't think we're really free, because freedom is the freedom to have choices. And unless you have money, you don't have the ability to make choices. I can illustrate that for you right now. Are you able to quit your job on Monday? Not in a couple days. Are you able to quit your job on Monday? I think most people cannot quit their job on Monday. So if you cannot quit your job on Monday, then you are stuck. And if you cannot quit your job on Monday, if you cannot even leave a place that you feel stuck in, are you really free? Because how free we feel is often tied to how we experience the economy. If you walk into the grocery store, but you don't have money for 90% of the food, are you really free to make choices? If you have to choose between your rent and going to the doctor, do you really have freedom of choice? If you have to choose between rent and going to the doctor, do you have freedom of choice? That's it. That's it. Because corporation, and then people are still here simping for corporations when those corporations don't care about you. Do you know what corporations do? They sell you food that isn't really food, right? Here's a make-believe story for you. Corporations care about you so little that they will put sawdust in your Parmesan cheese because they don't give a shit about what goes into your body. They only care about what goes into their bank accounts. But we still have people right here, right now, defending the ultra wealthy who will put sawdust in your Parmesan cheese. The easiest one to see is the healthcare industry. We literally pay them every single month to take care of us when we get sick. But when we get sick, they decide whether we get life-saving medical care based off of how much money they want to bring in that quarter. They literally base it off of whether the CEOs get their bonuses or not. That's what matters in this country. Not your family, not your community, whether the CEOs get their bonuses or not. And we just think that families should be on the same level as CEOs. We just think that communities should be on the same level as corporations. That's it. Because the corporation needs a healthy community to survive. And that's what people seem to forget. The corporation is nothing without the community. The corporation couldn't have started unless there was already a community there in place first. Duh. And then the corporation cannot keep growing unless the community is there to support it. And guess what, y'all? The only reason they don't care about our communities anymore is because they're so big. They're too big to care about any one of our individual communities. And that's what this is. This is literally about local options. Because guess what? The people that are local to you care about what happens around you, right? The people who are local to you care about what happens around you. That's it. Well, that is great. It's me again. But look, there's going to be about 99 people here that all feel like they are working harder than ever and still falling farther behind. So let's drop some me's in the chat, because I was so sick of people bringing in their own individual story and not understanding that even if your story is different, you can certainly look at the average. And I would hope that you would have enough education to be able to say, oh, if it isn't happening to me, but it still is happening to large swaths of people, then that could still constitute an issue that we need to deal with in our society today. Because the problem is that people aren't dumb enough to manage money. People are too dumb to see the actual situation in front of them. And that's that America as a whole, imagine it as 10 people that need to make 10 slices of bread to survive. Now, one person, the ultra wealthy, has the oven and the ingredients, but the other 9 people do the work. The other 9 people know how to bake the bread, and together they make 10 slices of bread. Now, in America today, the 1% have as much as 90% of us. So if there's 10 people and 10 slices of bread, then one person is taking 5 slices of bread. So one person, 5 slices of bread, 9 people, 5 slices of bread. So when people say to live within your means or people need to budget better, I just laugh, because what it really is it's the 1% taking more than their fair share. That we are so divided in our country, not because we're different, but because there's not enough. And there's only not enough because the people up top took more than their fair share. Because what people aren't recognizing is that when 2 or 3 people, what is crazy is you say that's capitalism. So you don't think that people who do the hard work should get enough to live. You think that somebody should go work for Walmart and then literally have to sleep on the streets because people don't have their own oven. This is what this is all about. Some people are not born with the resources that they need to bake their own bread. Why is it the people that are born to a factory owner are more likely to be success than people that are born to a factory employee? That's all that we're saying. It's because of the advantages that you are born with. So it's so funny because you say bake your own bread, but even that one person didn't do their own, right? Because what you all are thinking is that one person did it all on their own, but it's not the case. Other people raised the grains to make wheat and separated the wheat from the chaff. Somebody else took care of all the chickens. Look at America today. Everyone is a product of their society. Bill Gates got lucky to be a billionaire. He was only a billionaire because of the luck of the draw. That's literally all it is. He got born at the exact right time in the world. After computers were made, but before an operating system was created, right? He had to be born in the exact right area so that he was born to the right family, and he was born next to Hewlett Packard so that he could go and steal the software. He got a huge loan from his parents. And I like to say if Bill Gates had been born in Florida rather than in Seattle, Bill Gates would not be a billionaire. So literally, if Bill Gates was just born in a different state, he would not be a billionaire. Somebody else would have come along and created an operating system for computers. But we over-reward the people who just got extra lucky, right? Same with Elon Musk. Elon Musk had to be born at the exact right time in history, in the exact right place, in a country that was completely stratified by racism, to an owner of an emerald mine before or after the internet had been invented, but before a pay processing had been invented for the internet. Somebody else would have come along and invented credit card processing for the mother effing internet. They don't add that much. They just come along at the right time in the right place and they get lucky. Just like people who are born to the factory employee rather than the factory owner also are born and they get unlucky. And I am able to understand this because I have 6 locations and 34 employees. And as soon as I got successful, I thought to myself, dang, I look around me and every single place is trying to pay their employees as low as possible. That doesn't make sense to me because I want my employees to feel empowered. I want my employees to feel like they own part of the business too, because I want them to know that if the business is successful, that they will become successful too. Because I recognize early on that my business can only do well if the community is healthy. And the community can only be healthy if its community members are able to purchase housing, food, healthcare, and build up security. Because the only way that people are able to be happy is if they have security, if they're able to build prosperity. And it's so funny. You know what some people will say, right? Oh, well, why don't people just go get more skills? Why doesn't somebody just get a better job? Well, that is really not looking at the reality, because if you're 1 week away from not having food or housing or healthcare, then you can't take a week off to go get another skill. You can't take a couple days off to go interview at new places. And not only that, you might not get that new job. So that new job might not even be as good. They might cut your hours. So you're literally barely hanging on to a life raft. And you're like, all right, I'm not going above water, but at least I'm not drowning either. I mean, look at it. It's right here. The cost of living is right there. And what somebody says, oh, go get another skill, go get another job. Why don't you just move? You're asking that person to let go of the life raft, go under the water with the potential of never coming back up, in the hopes that that next life raft will hold them. That is not realistic. People need not just security, but prosperity. There is a reason that they make sure that we don't have 6 months of savings, because if we had savings, we wouldn't accept that minimum wage job. So they make sure we don't have savings because they want to pay us as low as possible because they're greedy. And then, so back to the analogy. So, all right, if I am only trying to underpay my employees, well, then what are they going to do? They're going to go and work somewhere else, aren't they? They're going to go and look to work somewhere else. Well, what if I owned every single company in town, right? What if my goal was to underpay my employees because I knew that I owned every company in town, and no matter what, you're going to be working for me? And then when people say, why are you so greedy? I just point to the laws that I helped rewrite. And I say, look, I have a fiduciary responsibility. I am legally obligated to make returns for my shareholders, regardless of what happens to your community. That's it. Corporations are legally obligated to make money regardless of what happens to your community. That's why they put sawdust in our Parmesan cheese, because they don't care if you eat sawdust. Yes, that's what fiduciary responsibility is. It's a legal responsibility to maximize returns for shareholders. It literally was what? Dodge versus Ford Motor Company or something like that? It's one of the most landmark. So they've completely taken over the economy. They dominate the salaries. There are no more mom and pop shops anymore. They came in, all the general stores, Walmart and Target, they lowered their prices. They got rid of all the mom and pop general stores. And then they raised their prices. So we all know this. The ultra wealthy control the economy. It's so funny, K7. We don't care what you think. We appreciate that you're here. I think the fact that this annoys you so much means that you know there's a grain of truth in it. But this is why I put this right here. Just go look up. Just go look it up. You don't need to argue with me. Just go look it up. And then this is where, guys, I'm going to get rid of Scott. Scott's going to get yeeted because we literally point out that, hey, companies don't care about you. They don't care about your community. They care about you so little that they'll put sawdust in your Parmesan cheese. And what does Scott say? Sawdust won't kill you. That's where we don't need to talk to people like that, right? Who cares? Who's next? Thank you, Tony. Because if somebody still has their head in the sand after all this time, I'm not going to spend my time trying to convince them. That sounds exhausting. Because what it really is only 30% of Americans want this. It's just those 30% have a billionaire's thumb on the scale. Scott Wagner, more like Scott Wagner Group. And then so what it is this movement is about gathering the other 70% of people that are like, F this. We can all literally see that the corporations are out to hurt us, that the corporations have a legal obligation to their shareholders, which means they will try to screw over us and our communities at every turn. We've all seen it happen. We've seen it with sawdust in our Parmesan cheese, with recalls and everything, AI children's toys, and the most egregious to me is our healthcare, because we pay them to take care of us, and then they decide whether we live or not, depending on their bonuses, right? So we've seen two lately. There needs to be a tax blackout. We need to stop supporting corporations. Yes, we all realize there is more of us than there are them. Why can't we fix it then? Well, I have an illustration for you. If 10 million of us, if 100 million of us went and protested on Monday, nothing would change. Because the very next day, we'd buy our groceries from the people we're protesting against. We'd pay our electric bill and our internet bill, and it would go to the people we're protesting against. We'd buy our gas and our cars and our power, and it would go to the people we're protesting against. So power isn't coordination. Power isn't having large people in massive amounts of groups, right? Power is having control over what people need to live. Power is controlling all the food. Power is controlling all the healthcare. Power is controlling all the housing. And it's only once you have those things locked up that you can start taking over the political process. The hallmark of capitalism would be free, would be a free market, would be freedom of choice. So that would mean that there would be 10 general stores in every town. But right now, over 85% of corporations on the S&P 500 have the same 3 top shareholders. So I'm not talking about anything crazy. We're not talking about anything new. We're talking about kind of what we used to do. So instead of having grocery stores everywhere, we can have more farmers markets. I think a big solution to this is to create more competition. Let people open businesses in their homes. Let farmers markets operate in every single grocery store parking lot, because food is a community asset. It shouldn't be something that people sell back to us to make money off of. Every single general store, we should allow swap meets in, because I guarantee it, if Walmart had this much competition, that they would pay their employees enough to stop rolling their eyes at you every single time you asked a question. This stuff isn't that hard. People are always like, oh, what are we going to do? It's like, well, you could get your shoes from the local person that makes shoes, from the local cobbler, instead of going to Payless. Not all of your food, but maybe some of your food you can get locally. And then maybe, because the thing is, well, we want to buy local, but it's more expensive. There are so many ways that you can get the same product for a lower price if you just cut out the corporations. There are people around you right now that are producing food, that are creating things to eat. It's just that they sell them to corporations, and then the corporations sell them back to us. There is most likely a farmer near all of us, but that farmer sells all of their food to a corporation. So we have to, instead of going from us to the farmer, it goes us, corporation. So what we're saying is, let's just go around that corporation and we'll talk with the farmer. And then eventually, if enough of us get enough farmers on our side, it's only more expensive because we want to buy corn for $5. The farmer wants to sell corn for $5. The farmer sells its $5 corn to the corporations for $5. Then the corporations go spray it, they truck it, they put it in their warehouse, they take it out, they put it in their grocery store. Now that $5 corn is $9 because it went through the corporation. But if we had just walked our asses up to the farmer, we could have gotten the very same corn for $5. It's more expensive because the corporations are selling it back to us. I mean, it's like, imagine you grow something in your backyard and you want to sell it to your neighbor. Well, what if it was that we had to sell it to the corporations before we sold it to our neighbor? That's what it is now, right? They're not what we're saying is they're not the ones that create anything. They're not the ones that add value. We're the ones that do the work to create things that has value. It's just that the corporations have plopped themselves in between the things that we need to live. Our essentials is what you could say. All humans have the same essentials: our food, our housing, and our healthcare. And we just need to make sure that the cost of living, our essentials, what the cost of our essentials are, is below what our salary is. That's it. That's it. Because what people don't understand is that if the literal average salary is less than the average cost of living, then most people, a lot of people, won't be able to make ends meet. And if there is 9 people fighting over 5 slices of bread, it's not that those 9 people are lazy. It's not that those 9 people don't know how to budget. It's that one person took more than enough. One person took more than their fair share. The 1% in America have as much as 90% of us, right? The 1% in America have as much as 90% of us. Yes. So what we are doing, we meet every single week because what we believe is that if we all got together to actually try to fix the issues, that we'd be able to come up to a solution. We know that the people in charge right now actually want these problems to perpetuate, because the more that these problems perpetuate, the more divided we are, and the more divided we are, the more power they have. So what we are going to do is we are simply going to stop relying on corporations. Because right now, we already talked about it. They have power over us because they have control over the essentials. They control the food. They control the housing. They control the healthcare. And that's why they have the power over us. Because even if 100 million of us protested tomorrow, well, then the next day we'd have to go buy all of our groceries from the same people we're protesting against. Well, the next day tomorrow, we'd have to buy our internet and our power from the people we are protesting against. So until we are the ones that take back control of the essentials, we have no power. That's fine. We just have to recognize that there's no instant fix. It's like if you went to your doctor and you found out you had a heart disease and the only fix was everyday diet and exercise. But what so many people think is that, there's this problem. And then they go and exercise for 24 hours straight. And what do? They collapse from exhaustion. And that's what happens in these exact same movements. is that rather than understanding, oh, I don't need to do a ton, I need to change my way of thinking, reorganize my life around that new way of thinking, and recruit others into this movement. I don't need to change every aspect in my life. What I need to do is recognize that the goal of this is to reduce our reliance on corporations. Maya, we can't tax the rich because the rich control the political process. If we get first of all, that's because they give the campaign finance to the politicians. So the politicians are going to be beholden to the people that helped get them elected because they want to get elected year to year. So they're going to try to please the very people that helped them get elected. So the politicians don't work for us. They work for the billionaires. So the whole reason we can't do this with policy or legislation is because the ultra wealthy control the political process. The whole reason we can't do this through the media and telling the truth is because the ultra wealthy control the media. We no longer live in the same reality. And they obviously dominate the economy. So there are literally no other options. They have taken over the pillars of power in our society. They control the economy, the media, and the political process. And as we talked about before, there is 99 of us for every one of them. So why haven't we lifted up? Why haven't we risen up? Well, because even if 100 million people protested, the very next day, we would rely on them to go buy our groceries from. We'd rely on them to go get our lights and our power and our heating from. We rely on them for our health care. And as soon as we understand that it's the reliance on corporations is what gives them power, not our division, that's when we can actually start taking the power back. Because the way we stop relying on corporations is we start relying on each other. Rely on me and you. The reason I want to rely on you, somebody who lives in my community, is because if you live in your community, you also care what happens to your community, right? Because it is realistic, because there are farmers in your community right now that want to sell you quality, wholesome food. But all that farmer knows is selling it to the corporation. That's what he's always done. It's what his parents have always done. So they just don't know another way. So we have to reach out and show them another way. I can promise you there are healthcare providers, doctors, and nurses. We hear it all the time. All they want is to give you quality care at an affordable cost. So rather than having to go through corporations to reach the very doctors and healthcare providers that are in our community, all we're saying is, F the corporation, let's go around them. There are people in our community that can provide us what we need. What we need. The rich do not make the products. They buy the factories. There's a big effing difference. Because if you buy a factory that requires 1,000 people to run it, who is the one that is really making the product? Because what it is you have been brainwashed to believe that the person that buys the factory, they deserve everything that factory creates. But the person that Amazon workers are so much more likely to get hurt. That boss is not going to get a physical injury. They are simply risking a little bit of money. It's the workers in the factory. My uncle got his fucking hand smashed to shit because he works at Caterpillar's factory fixing their big fucking engines. And it was my uncle's hand, who was a fucking college pitcher, who now doesn't have a functional right hand. But no, it's the owners that are taking the risk. They're the ones putting their hand underneath a 2-ton machine that hasn't been serviced in 6 months due to the cheapness of that very same owner, right? No, what it is, Kenneth, is people like you, if you actually were happy, you would say, whoa, this guy's crazy. Let me go back to my nice life where houses are cheap. Because all it is it's not like a factor of, All you need to do, anybody needs to do, is show me an area where the cost of living on average is half of what this average salary is. That's all. All I think is that Americans should make money. If you do the hard work, you should get your fair share. That's it. If you do the hard work, you should get your fair share. Mike, that's what I'm talking about. But then somebody just said, oh, well, it's the owner that's making all the profit. Well, let's talk about that some more. Because all the owner does is spend daddy's money to buy a factory. But they can't work at all those positions. The factory literally needs 1,000 people doing 500 different things to make the product. But people are not able to see that ultra wealthy factory owner still relies on their workers. It's so funny is I am a business owner. That's why I'm so passionate about this. And I am actually, as an employer, I just realized this, I'm arguing against employees. I'm telling you, as the business owner, as somebody who owns a business, I know that it's rigged because of this. And then people who are literally getting screwed over by their bosses, instead of being like, oh, that makes sense. The lies are so deep in their brain. We all know why, because they've wrapped their identity into this. They've wrapped their identity into this. We can tell that Zach and Kenneth are taking this so personally because your identity is wrapped in it. My identity is not wrapped in having these conversations. I simply found a truth that could not be ignored, that 1% of people have as much as 90% of us. And many people don't seem to realize that that's the reason for all of the inequality in our country, is that we started making more money. That's the blue line. That's the money we made for the company. And they just didn't pay us enough. That's the red line. And then so this money we make for the company, blue line, money they pay us, red line, equals this, y'all. This is math. Remember all those people that cry about and yell, facts over feelings, right? Well, here are the facts. This is the productivity of American workers since 1980. And then here's the average cost of living for regular Americans. So, K7, this is fact over, I know that you feel like this is wrong, but this is fact over your feelings. This is fact over your feelings. So these facts are the truth. What you feel, Richard, I think opening books is one of the best things that we could possibly do. If every single business told every single employee, this is how much I make off of you, oh my God, our negotiating ability would skyrocket, right? Our negotiating ability would skyrocket. Me as a business owner knows this. I literally open up the books to all my employees. I say, this is how much money you bring in. This is how much money we pay you. Look, you get a lot of the money that you bring in. And then guess what? If you keep bringing in more, you get paid more. Right? That's the way it should be. Because honestly, if you empower people, if people have food, housing, and healthcare, they want to contribute to their community. They want society to be better and better and better. That's right, Richard. That's why somebody asked earlier, what side are you on? What are you? We don't talk about ideology because what is the effing point? Because ideologically based words are literally only meant to divide us. The same way, are you on team red or are you on team blue? That's not meant to do anything but divide us. That's not a productive question. What do you label yourself as? That's not a productive question, because some people will say, oh, I don't like that label. And other people will be like, oh, I do like that label. We believe that if you do the hard work, you get your fair share of the reward. We're not asking for a seat at the table. We're building our own goddamn table. because we are actually the ones that create the value in this economy. We are the ones that make the profit. But they're the ones that take all the money. They're the ones that take all the wealth. No, we are living quite in the tyranny of meritocracy. That is one of my favorite books, Michael J. Sandel, The Tyranny of Meritocracy. If you listen to what I was saying, that's exactly what I'm talking about. How everyone is a product of their society. And because of that, there is no reason to try to nail people down on whether they want reformism or systemic change, when if you listen to me, that's what I'm saying, but I use words that hit the average person. We're not asking for a seat at the table. We're building our own table. What does that tell you? We talk about practicality over ideology, because if we spew ideological words, we are getting 50% of people covering their ears right away simply because they don't know what it means. And they were told that those big, long words are scary, are anti-American. They've been propagandized against. So if we recognize that such a large portion of America this said we rely on corporations for our food, for our health, for our housing, but there are people in our community that are making food. There are people in our community that want to give us health care. So what we need to do is start connecting with those people in our community who have what we need, the people who already provide the essentials. We literally called them essential workers. So it's literally the people that do the essentials are the ones that is most needed. John, that's not for me to figure out. I just want to get us to a place where change is possible. I don't think that I am the one that should be figuring anything out after that. El Banco, I appreciate you dropping that me. So we do have everybody type me in the chat if you are feeling this, because the number one thing that they do to screw us over is they make us feel isolated. They make us feel alone. This is not a tax resistance thing. So that's why we drop the me's in the chat. I appreciate you all, because damn, when I see 50 drop in like that, it's like, shit, well, what is wrong? Why can't we fix this? Well, we can't fix this because we don't control the essentials. We don't control the essentials because we are not connected with people in our community. So it sounds silly, but literally the first step is to connect with people in our community. That is how we fix this. You start making friends with people in your area. We have to stop relying on corporations and begin relying on each other. But we can't rely on each other if we are strangers. So we have to make connection. And that's where a lot of the issue is fact that people are not looking at what brings us together. All it seems like we do is look at, well, what are we going to do to make this less accessible to other people? How are we going to pull people apart? Ready? So what we're talking about is, why are people working 40 hours a week and still falling farther behind? Why does the majority of Americans feel that way but have nothing to do about it? Well, because we rely on them for everything that we need to live. So, John, I'm not in here to have like one-on-one conversations about things that you are concerned about. I am right now the carnival barker, getting people into the tent. That's where our Discord is. It's where our weekly meetings are every single Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you have concerns about something, I'd love for you to reach out. But to be honest, it feels like we are connected in 19 ways out of 20. And you want to discuss the one way that is like way in the future of how what our vision is doesn't directly align to yours. And I am more than happy to have that conversation. Just this isn't the right forum for it. And what this is really about is putting aside our tiny differences. Oh, something that might happen in a year hasn't been exactly thought out the way that I want it to be. Well, I'm out of this group. Or, oh, maybe I'll give them some time to get through the initial phase 1, 2, 3, 4. And then once we get to step 8, then I'll ask them about step 9. That's all. I'd like to get people. The goal is to get everyone to have the same diagnosis of the problem, the disease, right? Because the only way that we can come up with a cure is if we all believe in the same diagnosis, that what the disease is. Some of us can't think it's an earache, while some of us think it's a backache, while some of us think it's cancer, right? We have to all understand that greed is the disease every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Right? Abyss, that's exactly what it is. Because we are the ones that do the hard work, but they do not care about us. They are fiduciaries, which means they are obligated. And then, John, I'm about to drop the Discord too, so you can always send me a message in there. I apologize, man. I wish I could get to everything in here, but these are for more like the high level, because everybody is feeling this, right? Everybody in America feels this pain. And this is for us to come together and be like, you feeling this? All right, we are all feeling this. This is when we get together. Then, of course, people are going to have questions about the future, about what's going on. Hey, what is going on with this? What is going on with that? How do we fix this? How do we fix that? Dale, you're so right. That's what we're talking about. Is that all? And the reason they do that is because all of the CEOs, all of the fiduciaries, their bonuses are based off of next quarter, right? So they are literally incentivized for short-term gain that screws us all over in the long term. I know, Laura, that's where it makes me so mad when people say, oh, the ultra wealthy took the risk buying that factory. No, I am not paid enough, and I have to choose between paying the light bill and going to the doctor. And then guess what? If you put off the doctor over and over and over again, you just never get better. And John, I didn't see the rest of the conversation, but I think the same way. The definition of business should be like, number one, it shouldn't just be, how does this benefit you? It should also be like, what are you doing that's benefiting the community? Because the business should benefit the community. Because the only reason that we should have new businesses is if everybody is able to enjoy it. Because you're starting new businesses based off of everybody who came before you's work. But even then, time to fix you, you're so right. But then that's where it's that initial risk that we say, okay, well, yeah, even after somebody has $100 million, they still took the risk. And I'm like, yo, they don't have any risk anymore. It's that worker who's working with the lift that hasn't been serviced in a year, and they might come careening down 50 feet. They're the ones taking the risk. Holy shit, Carrie, I am so sorry to hear. But that's what I was saying earlier. So we all know there's a problem, right? We're all effed. Ultimately, this is the problem. The cost of living is higher than our average salary. And that is a feature of what they've built. That didn't get us here. That didn't get us here. That is a symptom of what happened. So what happened was that they took over all of the power levers, in the levers of power in our society. They completely control the economy. There's no more competition in our world, in our country anymore. The only way that you can make your food poisonous, the only way you can put sawdust in your Parmesan cheese is if you know is that we got rid of the survival of the fittest because we said, man, it's really nice and know where our food is coming from every single day. It's so nice to wake up and have water instead of having to fight for our survival. If we cooperate, we're able to make life easier for everyone, right? So the 1% figured out that they want all the power. The 1% figured out they can keep all the power as long as they cooperate with each other, right? So the 1% are actually cooperating really well to make sure that we don't have the power. In fact, in grocery stores, the places where the prices have gone up the most is when there is only 2 or 3 corporations. So cereal has gone up a lot. That's because 80 or 90% of your cereal is 3 corporations. And every single industry where just a few corporations dominated, then what they did is they got together and they said, hey, let's all raise the prices 10%. Then they're not deciding between option A, B, or C based off of price. We all make more money. And then the consumer, they can't say no. This is toilet paper. They can't say no. But if we all raise our price in unison, we are not going. Absolutely, Bumblebee. So that's where what we are doing is we rely on the corporations. So that's where everybody, I'm done with the problem. Let's talk solutions, y'all. So the problem is we rely on corporations for what we need to live. If we could just withdraw from the system and say, hey, we're not working for you anymore, then we would have the power. But they know that when we withdraw from the system, that they're the ones that control the food. They're the ones that control the power. They're the ones that control our healthcare. And as long as we rely on the 1% of people who don't care about us, who really only care about profit for what we need to live, we will always never have control. We will always be under their control. So power isn't all of us coordinating and going outside and yelling about it. Power is all of us taking back control of the essentials, right? So we need to get our food handled locally because there are people in your area that are producing food. It's just that corporations have plopped themselves in between you and the food producer. There are people in your area that are healthcare providers, and all they want to do is provide healthcare at affordable rates to you. But corporations stand in between and say, nope, no affordable healthcare for you because we need to make money. So the way that we fix this is so right, Megan. We don't do something new. We don't have to invent anything. We just start relying on each other instead of corporations. We rely on people in our community instead of corporations, because the corporations, the only way we used to rely on our community, right? And then the corporations came along and said, hey, we care about you. Not only do we care about you, but we'll make this easier for you. Look at childcare. Look at food. It used to be we had to bake our own bread, right? We used to have to make our own Parmesan cheese. Then a corporation came along and was like, hey, y'all, that's a lot of work. And especially if you're the only one buying that ingredient, then it's going to be expensive. What we can do is we can buy a lot of these ingredients so it's cheaper, and then we'll just sell you the Parmesan cheese you don't want to make. You don't need to make it. And we go, whoa, that is great. We now get convenience. I don't have to spend all my time making Parmesan cheese. This corporation's going to do it for me. And for about 50 years, the corporation was like, nice, I love you, community. And we're like, thanks, corporation. You're really nice to us. You make really good Parmesan cheese. And then over the last 30 years, those people that cared about our community, they looked and they go, oh, wait. We're a multinational corporation. So I don't care about that little town of Asheville, North Carolina. I don't care about that little town over there. I care that all of these other towns. So basically, I can start putting sawdust in this town's Parmesan cheese. And I don't care what happens in that town. I'm not a part of that town. So what do? They put sawdust in our Parmesan cheese, right? So we need to stop relying on corporations and start relying on each other. But right now, we're all strangers, right? We're all strangers. It's hard to connect, especially as adults. So the first step is to stop being strangers. The first step is to start to get connection amongst each other. Because if I need to rely on Dale and Lady and Wendy and Chi-Town for the things that I need to live, then I need to make sure that they're not strangers anymore, right? They're not strangers anymore. And if they're not strangers anymore, and we actually start building those relationships, which starts with habits, you start meeting up every week, every 2 weeks. I sell them some eggs. They sell me some leather. I don't know. That's the way this works. And then eventually we build relationships, we connect, and then eventually we stop relying on corporations. If we have 5 different farmers that we get all of our food from, we don't need to go to the grocery store. If all of us build direct primary care models in our community, then we don't need to rely on the corporations for our health care. If all of us start connecting and say, hey, I live in a house that's owned by Blackstone, do you? And everybody that lives in a giant shitty apartment complex owned by Blackstone gets together and says, hey, if we push back at once, then we have the power. That's what we need to do. Our first steps have to be small steps together. And Des, I'm glad you said that, because so many times people see the issue and then say, oh, we're screwed. There's nothing we can do. But that's just because you are being told that we have stage 5 cancer, and then nobody's giving you the steps you need to take to fix it, right? Because if you're just told that if the doctors walk in and say, hey, you've got cancer, you're going to die, there's a way to fix it, bye, right? What about that? What about that? Hop in the Discord if you're feeling this, y'all. So that's what this is. Yes, whoever just said it. The fact that we think there's nothing we can do about it, that's the illusion. That's the illusion. Because really, we do have all the power. But we need to recognize that, hey, it's going to start small. That what if the doctor came to you and said, you've got a congenital heart disease, and you might no longer live from it? Well, if they just didn't tell you the cure, you would freak out too. You would say, we're screwed. But what if they said this? All right, it's not going to be anything giant that you have to do. What you have to do is recognize that you have this disease. Recognize that this disease is what causes a lot of your other problems. That's the first step. So say you have cancer, but it causes acne, and it causes you to bleed from your ears, and it causes you to lose your hair. So if you've got cancer that is causing you to have acne, well, if you're only treating the acne and not the cancer, you're never going to fix it. So that's where the first step is recognizing greed is the disease. That is the problem. The next step is reorganizing our life the best that you can. We don't want everyone to change everything. We don't want a few people to give it their all. We want all of us to give it some. Because it really is all of us. Thank you for dropping that, me. Alum. Because part of the reason we feel so alone, part of the reason we feel so isolated is because they make us feel like we're the only ones. Thank you, Tina. Let's get some me's in the chat, y'all. Because goddamn, don't we all feel like we're the only ones? Doesn't it feel like we're the ones that do the work, but they don't pay us enough, and then they blame us? That's what they gaslight the hell out of us. They make the average salary less than the average cost of living, and then they blame us. God, that pisses me off. So that's where then people come in and go, you're too mad. That's what I'm going to say from now on. They make the average salary less than the average cost of living, and then they blame us. And then they send sleeper agents like Charlie to go blame the government. The government works for the ultra wealthy. Dale, I know that's why, Dale, I am so passionate about this because of me being a business owner. As soon as I got big enough that I couldn't be the only one growing the business anymore, I recognized that I couldn't pay my employees minimum wage. Not that I ever did, but I couldn't pay them the absolute minimum if I also wanted them to grow my business. So I'm like, okay, well, I started a business not so that I could work for 40 and 50 hours a week. I started a business so I could have my time back. And that's what we really forget. The billionaires want their cake and they want to eat it too. They want all of their time back, but they also want all of the money. What the fuck? You can either have all of your time back and $100 million, or you can do the work of 10,000 people, and that's the only way you should get $1 billion. Because as a business owner, after I had more than enough to live, after I had my prosperity, once I hit 4, 5, 6 locations, I recognized that, I'm buying back my time. So yeah, I could pay my employees the minimum that they would work for, but then I'm making up for it in my time. Or I could pay my employees $5, $10, $15 more an hour, and that $15 more an hour would buy me the ability to not have to stress about the growth of my business. Cleo, we are suggesting that right now we rely on corporations way too much, because we all know that the 99% of us are way more than there are of them. So if there are so many more of us than there are of them, why haven't we fixed this yet? Why haven't we come together? Well, the reason is because if we get 100 million people to protest tomorrow, well, then we will still have to go buy food from the same people we are protesting from the very next day. If we have 100 million people protest tomorrow, we're still paying all of our electricity and our light bill to the same people we're protesting against. So power isn't coordinating. Power isn't, having legislation passed. Power isn't a million people standing up at once. Power is controlling what people need to live. Power is food. Power is healthcare. Power is control over the essentials. And this is so terrible because there are literally people in our community that we could rely on to get our essentials from. We start connecting, we start relying on each other, because look, there are farmers in your area that are making food and they want to sell it to you. It's just that they've never known anything different than selling all of their food to the corporation and then the corporation turning around and selling it right back to us. So all we need to do is call up that farmer and say, hey, there are 50 of us in Oklahoma. There are 50 of us in Oklahoma that want to buy food directly from you, Mr. or Miss Farmer. Can you please put aside a little bit of what you sell to the corporations and sell it to us? We are starting community-supported agriculture. And it doesn't need to be like that with 100% of your food. What if we got 20% of people doing it for like 40% of their food? And if you're cutting out the fucking middleman, if you're cutting out the person that raises the prices, it's not going to be more expensive. It's only more expensive because the corporations are adding on their cut. Same with healthcare. There are doctors and nurses that want to take care of you for an affordable cost, but corporations have stuck themselves in between. So we need to go to those doctors, go to those healthcare providers and say, hey, we don't want to go through the corporations anymore. They're making all of our life hell. And what it really is we don't want to go through them because they've shown us over and over again that they don't care about us because they're not a part of our community. That's it. We don't want to keep relying on people that don't care about us. We don't want to keep relying on people that are not a part of our community. So, right now, the only way that we can do that, it's not right away. It's not going to be immediate. It's not even going to be fast. It will be kind of fun. We'll get to know each other. We'll be able to connect. Because what we need to figure out is that if the ultra wealthy have control over us because they're the people we buy our food from, then we need to figure out how to stop buying our food from the corporations. And all of this begins with connecting with people in your area. Because everyone is already building this. Because when this happens, when the system stops working for us, we don't invent something new. We go back to what we used to do. Rely on people in our community, because our community are the people that care about what happens to our community, right? Phoenix, that's exactly what we're talking about. So the way that we spread these strategies and ideas is we meet every single day at 11 a.m. Eastern. Not eat the billionaires, it's stop serving the billionaires their food. But right now, the only way that we get food is if we give the billionaires food. So right now we go, Mr. Billionaire, Mrs. Billionaire, can we give you your food? And they throw us their scraps. What we need to do is figure out outside of them how we can make food so that they don't even know about it. So that they are like, whoa, where did my food come from? Or where did my food go today? And what they normally say is, my food's a little late. They will always be back though, because they need my scraps. So they're sitting there, they're like, I don't care that they're protesting. What are they going to do? They can't get their food from anywhere else. So they have to come back to me. But then what if we didn't have to get our food from that person? Then that person, that billionaire, starts going, oh shit, they don't need me anymore? Oh shit, I better stop taking way more than my fair share. I better get them back. And y'all, we're also at 78 new follows. Let's get to 100 new followers. Come on. Because we all feel this. If it's not you, you probably know somebody. Because in my mind, you're either under 40 and you've lived this your whole life. You're over 40 and you've lived this half of your life or the majority of it. Or if you're over 55 or 60, if you have kids, your kids are definitely feeling this, y'all. So we all feel this. And let me know, because this is the solution. We have to stop. So corporations have the power, not because we are too divided. Corporations have the power because they control all the essentials of what we need to live. There's food, there's housing, and there's healthcare. So that's why the 1% have power. We can take the power back by fully withdrawing from the system. Because if we are working full time and that still doesn't cover the basics anymore, we only have two options, right? Work more than 40 hours or figure out something else. And when the system doesn't work for us, we can't just keep asking for change. We have to build what does work for us, because this is a matter of survival. It's not that we can't buy our TVs cheap enough and we have to go without TV. It's that we can't buy our food. So what we are doing is we are relying on our people in our community. We have to stop relying on corporations. And yes, this is going to take a long time. But I would much rather take a long time building a world and a society that I have to rely on people that actually care about me than I would staying in this abusive situation. Because right now, we're the ones that do all the hard work and they take everything from us. And all that we are talking about is why do 40 hours a week not cover the basics? The solution is connecting, Ponder. I've been going over for about 20 minutes that there is a farmer in your area that wants to sell you food. It's just that all that farmer ever knows is selling all their food to the corporations because they've never had a bunch of community members call them and say, can we buy 10% of your food? So all we need to do to get food under local control is to call all the people that are creating food in our area. We say, hey, this is a local group of people in Oklahoma, and there's 50 of us. And we are so sick of going to grocery stores when you are making the food. And I know you're sick of selling your crap to corporations. What if we just bought the food directly from you? Do you think we could figure that out? Boom, we get some of our food. So lady, what we do is we meet every single Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. That is our national group. The first step in the national group is to break out into states. D-Bro, we're building it every single week, every single day. So we are live here at 11 a.m. every single week. We have our citizens assemblies where it's basically our group meeting every single Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Because there are already people that are doing these things. There are already people that said, oh yeah, I wanted a co-op, I wanted a CSA in my area. So 10 of us all called 7 p.m. Eastern. So we all called all the farmers in our area, and this is how we did it. And that's what the citizens assemblies are for. It's for all of us to come together to say, this is how we started making change in our area. This is how we started reaching out to different farmers in our area. And this is how you can do it too. So the same way. So see all these people we got right here, all these people that we got, all these people want to be a part of this, but we've got to connect with them first, right? This is what I think about. What if 1/10 of these people all wanted that were sick of getting their food from corporations? What if 1/10 of these people were all sick of getting their health care from hospitals, the corporate-owned hospitals? What if all these people said, okay, I am committed to calling all the farmers in my area and asking them, hey, can you do this and that? Because the hard part is figuring out the cure, right? But if we already have people who are building this, I think somebody on this chat literally said, oh, this is happening in my area. So then what we do is we tell that person, hey, person in the chat, can you figure out how they built this in your area? And then we can spread this to all these people too. All right, we're 7 away from, I hate doing this, but we're 7 away from 100 followers. It would be awesome if we hit 100. So every single Sunday, we've got people in Florida. So Tara, hop on the Discord. If you are into this, the way we first start connecting is hop on the Discord. I just dropped it. Hop on the Discord. When you get in the Discord is broken out by states. For people that don't know, the Discord is basically a giant messaging board. So the Discord is broken up by states. You'll see me on there, the Take It Back movement. So D-Bro, we've got 100 organizations that are already a part of this. It's going to be 1,000 organizations and 1 million individuals. We call it the civic force. This civic force understands that the only true power is control over the essentials. That's the only thing we can't forget. That and the fact that we love each other. But the only thing that this civic force must remember is that power is not 1,000 of us standing on a street corner yelling together. Power is 1,000 of us calling the farmer for what we need. Brenda, I appreciate that. So I originally was, I am a part of General Strike myself. And back in January, before I started my own movement, I'm all about general strike. What this is all about, the big difference between this and general strike, in my view, is that our whole goal is to connect the general strike with everyday life, with how can we show people that power is connecting with others in your community? And I think that the general strike is the same way, but I believe that they are using more traditional language that would be a part of this type of movement. For us, we are very much staying away some of the basically staying away from the things that would divide us and focusing on the things that would bring us together. Like, kind of like yelling at, like saying anti-capitalism. Oh, we are anti-capitalist. Well, so are we, but we're not going to say that out loud because that is just the wrong messaging. It's just like, no, there are a lot of really good parts of capitalism. Free market is pretty fucking awesome. But it's when it's not, when there's no guardrails against greed, when there's no guardrails against human nature. Dale, and that's the big difference, is I think we are trying to do this completely sans any labels, because all labels do is invite division. And what I see a lot of on general strike is a whole heck of a lot of labels and signaling language that this is for this group of people and this is not for this group of people. Not spelled out explicitly, but simply in the language that is used. Because I think the majority of people, there you go, Dawn. Yep. I think the majority of us, because I recognize this myself, the majority of us are a little bit brainwashed in that if we hear, certain words, we're like, what the F? That's not what we're trying to do. Like when somebody comes in and calls me a communist, I'm still a little bit like, what the fuck? Like it shouldn't get me upset, but I'm just like, what the hell? But that's because I've been propagandized against for 40 years that is a bad word. So if somebody else has that same feeling about something else, then I don't want to say that bad word that they're not really thinking about. Adam, absolutely. What we need to figure out, it's the minefield of words, right? We need to make sure that we're not stepping on any of those minefields, because if we do, the conversation blows up. So that's where, if the conversation does that anyways, then that's fine. That's where we say, who cares who's next? Damn, Johnny, that's fine. I think it says, we all feel this, now we take it back. But that's where, if you're not going to come and act with a positive attitude and community first and with empathy and understanding that I'm not here to answer one individual's question, I'm here to try to translate this shared confusion that we are all feeling because of the fact that our salary doesn't cover our cost of living. I know, Bumblebee. So Adam, you asked earlier, how do you join? I just dropped the Discord. We do have a website, Daddy Shark, funny freaking name. Our website is in the link in the bio, blackoutthesystem.com. And I just dropped the Discord link. So the goal of the Discord, you go ahead and break out into states. Start off with your general state chat and just see who's there. You'll have a state coordinator whose job is to basically welcome everybody, make sure you understand the different teams, the different roles on each team that we have, the overall goal and the structure. Hey, Aaron, that's what this is all about. The corporations don't care about us. They only care about themselves. And that's fine, Johnny. This isn't going to be for everybody. Because eventually what happens is, for the people that know, they know that this is the only way forward. So that's why I'm not too worried about convincing people, because eventually, unless they want to keep eating Parmesan cheese that is sawdust And unless they want to keep getting their health care from people that are actively trying to make sure they don't survive, then I believe they're going to have to follow us down this path, because there is literally no other way to continue living. Because when the cost of living is more than your average salary, then there's no coming back from that. We don't ask our way out of that. We don't say, can you please treat us better? Carrie's saying it right there. Carrie's already shown us. They show us what they think about us based on their language. They show us what they think about us based on how we treat this, how they treat us. How many of us have a family member that died because they didn't get the health care that they need? How many of us know someone that died because they didn't get the health care that they need? Not because they couldn't afford to give them the procedure, but because they literally do the math of, is it worth it to lose my bonus over this person surviving? Is it worth it to lose my bonus over whether this person lives or dies? And the reason, and I'll go back to it because I've never used this analogy before, the reason some people feel like there is no way for us to win is because it's like if the doctor walked in and said, hey, you've got brain cancer. Bye. Hey, you've got congenital heart disease. Bye. Of course, you're going to sit there and be like, oh, it's done. I am screwed. I have congenital heart disease. It's all over, right? But what if the doctor came in and said, hey, you've got congenital heart disease. I know that sounds scary, but it's really not. You've got to do a couple things here. Stop buying from big corporations. Start relying on people in your community. Now, I know that's going to be really hard to start, but the cool thing about this disease is that even if you can give 1% effort, it still matters, because it's not about everybody giving all their effort all at once. It's not about some people giving all their effort all at once. It's about everybody giving a little bit of effort all at once. So even if you are 100% reliant on corporations right now, even if you can only make yourself 99% reliant, that helps the cause. And then our goal is to meet every single week, Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern, so that if you are 100% reliant on the corporations, you can learn how to become 90% reliant. And then maybe after a month of these citizens' assemblies, you will learn how to become 80% reliant. And then maybe you learn how to become 70% reliant. And then maybe you learn how to become 50% reliant. And then maybe, just maybe, after enough time, if enough of us learn how to reduce our reliance on corporations step by step, then ultimately we will be the ones that take the power back. Because power is not 2 million of us, Elsie, sweet Elsie. Power is not 2 million of us standing in the streets together. Power, he who feeds you controls you. Monday at 7 p.m. Oh, you're good, Dale. I'm sorry if I came off hot. No, that's where I don't think about some of these things. That's where I love the conversations. I love the interaction because, yeah, Dale, I'm coming from my perspective here. Obviously, I'm a people person. I like being loud and in large groups, but then I just forget about the people that aren't people. So I just need somebody to stand up and be like, well, what about us? And I'd be like, well, this is it. Yeah, we don't maybe not like people, but man, you love relying on the people that gives you what you want, right? Appreciate it, question mark. The reason we ask people to drop those me's is because one of the ways that they keep us feeling so isolated, one of the ways that they keep us so screwed over is we think we're the only ones, right? Right here, I have the average cost of living which is less than the average salary. And the sad part of this is all of us think this is our fault. We all think this is our fault. We all think this is our fault. But it's not. They screwed us over generations. It's not our fault that it happened, but it is our fault that it continues to happen. because we can change it. We can fix it. Except the only change, the only fix is for all of us to realize that it's our reliance on the corporations is what gives them power. And if the reliance on the corporations is what gives them power, we need to stop relying on corporations. The welfare system is only exploited by the doctors that provide it in many cases. So what you are really doing, Ted, is that you are taking propaganda from the billionaires and you are believing it as fact. The reason so many people are on welfare is because if America was 10 slices of bread, the 1% have taken 5 slices. So one person gets 5 slices of bread, while 9 other people fight over 5 slices of bread. So those 9 other people have to go and rely on the public good. And it's not because they're not working hard enough. No, I love the common good. The common good is there in case of emergencies. But right now, the only emergency is that so many billionaires are taking 5 slices of bread and leaving 9 people to fight over the remaining 5 slices. Yep, Dawn. Well, that's where I don't know why. It's hard because it's human nature to be like, this makes so much sense. And then when somebody whose head is full of rocks doesn't understand it, to push back. And then it is human nature to be like, well, no, why don't you get this? 2 + 2 obviously equals 4. But you're right, Dawn. They're not here in good faith. And it just doesn't even matter. Look, we've got 109 new followers. We've got about 10,000 me's in the comments. We appreciate you all so much. We are here every single day at 11 a.m. Every day at 11 a.m. Eastern. No, it's not imaginary. It's just perpetuated by the people that are delivering the services. The majority of fraud is perpetuated. And on top of that, Ted, I would say that your argument is actually extremely disingenuous because so many more tax breaks and welfare, the billions of dollars are going to the billionaires. You're worried about thousands of dollars that we're trying to get to children. So if you look at the amount of money that Elon Musk has, which is hundreds of billions of dollars, if you just taxed him at the actual rate, then just his taxes that he would pay every single year would be more than enough to cover the entire welfare system. But they don't want you to know that, because then you keep blaming the struggling single mother, because then you keep blaming that 20-year-old that works at Walmart. And when they keep asking Walmart for a raise, Walmart simply won't give it to them. And that's not their fault. Walmart is a bunch of greedy assholes. But then, Ted, it makes no sense that when Walmart intentionally underpays their employees so that they can make more profit, then that employee has to go on public assistance, not because the employee's doing anything wrong, because the greedy billionaire knows that they can intentionally shift the cost of healthcare from their bottom line to the American taxpayer, Ted. Ted, you pay more in taxes because Walmart doesn't pay a living wage, because Walmart pays less of a salary than it costs to live. Thank you, Rhino Rich. It's so nice almost every time that I am refuting somebody's point on saying that this is the problem, then somebody comes in and says this. RT Drummer, if he had been taxed correctly at 20-30% rate, just like we are, will take that $400 billion, 10% of 400 billion would be 40 billion. 20% of that would be 80 billion. 80 billion covers enough for our welfare system's food and housing. So, Ted, what you're not getting is sufficient leaves every American without savings. So when Urban people, people that live in cities, are $400 down every single month. People that live in the rural are $300 down every single month. So Ted, that's a problem. But rather than just being like, hey, my name's Ted, and I don't have the savings that I like, and it's not my fault. You're like, my name's Ted, I don't have the savings that I like, and it's welfare recipients' fault. The billionaires are the one that create all the jobs. The billionaires are the one that set the wages. The billionaires are one that set the prices. The billionaires are the ones that control the economy. Musk's net worth. The billionaires are the one that control the economy. So who are the ones that are actually making all the decisions? The billionaires. The billionaires control the media. But you think it's being abused, so you are literally blaming people that you think, that's where I don't care, Ted. That's where I don't care. You have a chronic illness and you still don't see this? That chronic illness wasn't your fault, Ted. Didn't your expenses go up after you got that chronic illness? Doesn't it now cost you more to live now that you have a chronic illness? So what we're saying is that if it costs you more to live due to no fault of your own, then you should still be making enough what it costs to live. That's it. I cannot believe that you've got a chronic illness. We're basically saying that, hey, you didn't decide whether to get that chronic illness, but man, that chronic illness affected your life in a hugely negative way. So instead, all of us just standing around going, Ted, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. What's the problem, Ted? Why can't you do better? You're like, well, I was doing all right, but then I got sick during COVID. And then at the same time that I got sick, all of the prices went up. And now that I'm sick, I can only work 30 hours instead of 40. That's not my fault. I got an illness. But now, Ted, that you can only work 30 hours instead of 40, you're $500 short every month. Bye, y'all.